All right, welcome back to Indianapolis and the 2025 National Football League Scouting Combine. Very happy now to be joined by one of our favorites. He's Ryan Grigson, Senior Vice President of Player Personnel for the Minnesota Vikings. And on behalf of Pete Bercich and yours truly, all of us here with the Vikings Entertainment Network, a couple of days late, but happy birthday.
Thank you.
Hey, happy birthday. It was Sunday, right?
Sunday, yeah.
Thanks for remembering me. Yeah,
so Wikipedia was accurate.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. I
good.
had a great one. My family really did a lot better job than I ever do. So they really were thoughtful, and they did some really nice things for me.
It's nice to have the off-season birthday, though, right?
This is, I think, my wife said, this is like only the second time I haven't been in Indy for my birthday, like in 26 years or
Later
so.
Super Bowl, right?
Yeah.
Because of that.
Yeah, it was always down here, and I'd make up for it down here when I was younger with some of my buddies. Yeah.
Well, when you, Ryan, for those who don't know, former general manager of the Indianapolis Colts. So when you come here to the Indianapolis Convention Center, walking around to the Combine, radio, TV, pressers, the whole thing, see any media members where you like have to hold yourself back a little bit from maybe a decade ago and something somebody said?
There might be a couple, but I've gotten over any type of those feelings. Time heals all wounds, as they say. So it's part of it. You know, when you take those jobs, you know that you got a bullseye on your chest. So you got to have thick skin, and you just got to press on and just try winning every day. It's all it is.
You had some really good drafts there.
Yeah, the transition from the end of the season, going through all the evaluations of the guys you currently have, and then free agents with the NFL free agents coming up, and then the draft. We've heard a little bit about this upcoming draft, deep at running back, deep at interior offense and defensive line. Do you agree with that sentiment with these young guys coming out?
I think so. Based just on the numbers of when I look, because we have in our system, like I have my own personal grade board of guys, and then we have needs that I focus on summer and then during the season, projecting out. Because you never know, though. You could have injuries, and all of a sudden a position that was deep is a position of need. But I would say that you're correct on those things, and those are good places to have some depth for the draft because, every year it usually gets said that you got to build up front, you got to build inside out, and all those types of things. And there's always exceptions, and everyone loves the weapons and all those things like that. That's what's great about us is we have some really legit weapons on the perimeter. But I think it does stand to be true. Like the teams that consistently sustain winning, they're strong up front, and they have those type of guys inside to move people, move bodies, and also have a mindset about them.
Now, you being a former game-changing offensive lineman for Purdue and in the National Football League, then we had a back-related situation, and here we are. You forever will have an offensive line bent. When you come to the Combine, I would imagine, I mean, that's, you know a lot about a lot, but that may be your expertise, and that's leading me down the road of last year. So Walter Rouse and Michael Juergens. Yeah. It's neither one of them, played a lot during the course of the year, but now getting that year and off season, when you get them back for OTAs, physically they'll both probably look different because they're growing still. But what did you notice about those guys you liked as part of the covenant last year?
Well, first of all, to your first point, about being an offensive lineman, like
game changing.
Yeah, that's funny. But I was.
What's your birthday gift?
I was real, and I appreciate that. I'll give me some more. I like it. Okay. But it's really like I was basically scared into playing mistake-free football.
Ooh.
I had I was coached really hard, and the expectation was just know what you're supposed to do, don't screw up, or else you're going to lose your position. And that was just a very simple approach that worked for me. Everybody's different, but I needed that accountability every day, and it molded me in a lot of ways. And I think that position is one where muscle memory, doing extra, technique. I know, Pete, you played a long time, and there are many guys that were more talented, even you saw in Notre Dame or in the NFL, that didn't ascend to certain guys that didn't have the traits those guys had because they were just so proficient at their craft and so diligent at it. And the two guys you mentioned are exactly that. And you love that in a 6th and 7th round pick. Juergens did not go to an all-star game, did not go to the Combine.
Right.
He wasn't written by either of the Combines, yet he started 5 seasons in Power 4 football forward center, and one at guard, where he played really well at guard as well. They're both high-level workers. Rouse is a very big man. I know Kwesi's really excited about him, as we are Juergens. They're both smart. I mean, one guy was a Stanford guy, finished at Oklahoma. Juergens, Wake Forest, graduated in math science in like 3.5 years. Though both those guys have the traits to be NFL starters, they also have the work ethic and intelligence too. Rouse, has got some reps at guard, and with him being so big, he kind of fits the mold of someone that could body someone and get into their pads and be able to move them off the ball, because he is physically strong. He's got good quickness. And then Juergens is somebody that's, I thought he did a great job in training camp. He makes very little mistakes as a one-year guy, and he's sticky. He stays on blocks. He gets to the second level, and he's sticky with linebackers. He just has a really good feel for the game. And I think that those two guys, we can hit on those two guys if they continue the trajectory they're on right now.
Are their feet blue though? Are they blue?
The blue is CD has got blue feet. Okay, like let's be clear here. Like, and I think those guys would also recognize that. We'll say they have red plus feet.
Yeah,
because blue is in another stratosphere.
To land the plane on the second-year guys, if needed in a pinch, or maybe if needed at the guard position. Do you feel that you guys could use one or both of them?
I don't think you could. I think you can never have enough. I think that especially the young ones.
Yeah.
You want to be able to grow those guys young and have them here for the duration, 4 or 5 years. Then you're able to have continuity. And I think everyone gets that. KO surely does. Chris Cooper, Kwesi, and everybody in that room understands how this league works. And the best teams, they have really good offensive lines,
right?
And they've invested in it. There are teams that get lucky, and 2 teams I was with that went to Super Bowls. We had 7th-round picks and college free agents that made up our interior. But it's a different game now. You have so many variations and multiple looks, and so many different athletes come into play in the interior now that have so much edge rush ability that are hard to match. So you can't just have a Joe Blow in there anymore. Like before, it was just, give me a smart, tough guy, physical, that does his job, that's a good technician. It's hard to match with those guys that they're reducing down in different, looks that just out-athlete the offensive linemen sometimes.
Yeah.
Now, I do eventually, I want to get to Jalen Redmond, a guy who Kevin O'Connell has credited you with finding, so to speak.
It's a hell of a find.
But we need, what about him? And it was good to see him make some plays toward the end of the season, like some of the younger guys step up and make a couple highlight type plays, and to be able to sprinkle just a few of those guys into a roster can make all the difference in the world, can it not?
I'm very passionate about this because I think sometimes in our league, some people that haven't had to work in those leagues like me, I started out having to work in start out in the Arena League, the CFL, small school football, and just seeing guys that I've said it 1,000 times, that guy could have been in camp with me. That guy could have had a shot. Why is he not getting a shot? It's just not having bias. And you think about how many guys, like Johnny Randall's one of the greatest players in Vikings history was not drafted from a small school. So that right there is enough to say, dig, find players. And that's always been the mantra for me, is our job is to find players, not just know who goes on day one.
Yeah.
So a guy like Jalen Redmond, who had a really good combine, got overlooked, had some injury stuff, and then got hurt in the XFL, but played a handful of really good games where the tape really popped. And it's a credit to our staff that, and I think Flo talked about it, like the 90s set, Kwesi feels like it's set, and I'm here, pushing our staff and our personnel staff on a guy kind of outside the box. But they were open to it because that's what we do. Like, hey, just watch the tape. Let's see if you like him, like I like him. And it kind of built, and we got him, and he couldn't have done a better job.
Are you getting, with the college guys coming out, do you think, a more or less refined product? Because college football, the landscape of college football is changing so much with the portals and NIL and that whole thing. But are you seeing a more refined product from a media relations standpoint? But on the field, how much different are the players now than let's say that they were 10 years ago?
I can't say specifically that an aha moment I had that I thought of something like that, but I would say that if you're older, you're going to be more mature. Guys are coming in now 25 years old, most of them 24, but yet many general managers are looking at those guys when they come up on the board. We're in meetings and it says they're only going to be 20 on draft day. That's a lot more appealing.
Right.
So yeah, of course, if you're taking a guy at a high pick, you would hope that they were a little younger. You would hope that they could come be there for 2 contracts. Because if you get a guy that's 26, he's going to be 30, 31 for a second contract. And, that's the line of demarcation, and it's so I would say that I think they're coming in maybe more mature just because they're older and maybe a little more seasoned because they've had to go through adversity of going to 3 different schools or, and so forth, different coaches. It's a whole different landscape now, but I would not say nothing's like hit me across the face that I thought was different.
See, I'm glad you said that. Ryan Grigson, Senior Vice President of Player Personnel for the Minnesota Vikings from the Indianapolis Combine. It's the players who go to all the schools. Okay, so like this Miami quarterback Cam Ward, you had Incarnate Word and in another place, and he ends up at Miami, Shador. Now, granted, he's following his dad. He's at Jackson State, then he's at Colorado. But how much extra time do you guys have to put in when you're looking at players who have been at 3 schools to figure out why they keep jumping?
Well, it's funny, but the way it is now, our scouts are like, every time a guy would come up, they're usually like, oh, this is a 3-year study. Because, the guys get the COVID years or they have all these different years they're getting now. And, guys coming back for their 8th year now. I mean, it's crazy. But I would say that, these guys that are much older, especially at the quarterback position, it could be seen as a positive. I think it is a positive. Some of them are taking a pay cut to come to the NFL. So that's
true.
I mean, if they don't go in one,
Wow.
they could be taking a pay cut. So I'm always like, I remember being at a school when I heard that first time a couple years ago, and I was like, geez, I would just stay in school another year if it meant that, and be a college student.
Well, yeah. Think about the money you would have gotten from Shake Shack. Would have been unbelievable.
It would have been Bruno's in West Lafayette.
Yeah, Bruno's.
That was my spot. Yeah, or La Bamba burrito. Burrito as big as your head was their mantra.
Ryan Grigson on the 9 to Noon show from the Indianapolis Scouting Combine. What's more important to you, the week of Senior Bowl practices or the whole combine process? I mean, when it comes to evaluating and then selecting.
Man, I would have to say, and I hope I'm not beaten up for this, but I'm just being honest. I just feel like the Senior Bowl, because I can get interviews just like this, and we've interviewed guys even twice now from the Senior Bowl in here, but then you could see them in uppers and lowers playing real football, one-on-ones, real football combined with the person that you get to interview. So I feel that's a more full process.
Yeah.
Some people get more out of the positional work on the field in shorts. I do it certain position groups, but I don't place as much weight in others. So it's just my personal preference. But I personally like the Senior Bowl setup better because of the real football aspect.
Understood.
And part of it, you hear the phrase "on the hoof," right?
Yeah.
That means a lot. Right, you get because up to this point you've kind of seen them on tape.
Yep.
You guys may have gone to a number of college games. I know that you do that during the regular season as well.
Yeah.
College game on Saturday, come to our game on Sunday. Yeah. But actually getting to stand next to them, it matters, doesn't it?
Well, you could size them up, and sometimes you just feel a guy's presence too. Whether it's a middle linebacker that's tough as heck that is exuding that. And just his general presence on the field, a guy that's serious, a guy that's tough. And O-line wise, we can say, oh, that guy, he's kind of built like CD, or he's built more like Brian O'Neill, or those are all important, I think. But and then you see the guys that are great looking that maybe don't make a play all day.
Right.
That happens a lot.
Yeah.
But then there's also guys that we've done this in this process too that you see them on the hoof and they're a tub of goo, but they're great football players. And as you know, sometimes those guys, for some reason, the guys that I played with that had body types like that, it's kind of a off the cuff comment, but I just feel like for some reason those guys don't get hurt. They just don't. I won't list their names, but just the guys from college through the pros, the guys that I sign in Indy, they sometimes, the guys that are big and yoked up and just wound tight, I mean, it makes sense that sometimes they get more pulls than the guys that don't have a visible strand of muscle on their body.
We, from a combine media standpoint, following stuff, reading, listening, or watching, not being in the room with personnel football minds like you. Interior defensive line, running backs. I mean, we're just hearing, we've had people on today from ESPN, learned draft analysts, who are like, no, there will be starting running backs taken Saturday, rounds 5, 6, and 7, that can help certain teams with what they do. So do you see it that way with interior defensive line and running backs, that this is just unbelievably deep?
I see it more with running backs than I do interior D-line. Like, the studs are going to be taken early at interior D-line.
Right.
Like, people aren't going to be losing their minds to take a running back high. There's always a couple that maybe are worthy of that first round, just kind of historically speaking and over the years. The big guys, the big bodies that can move, hold the point, that can get pressure and disrupt, those are the guys that, everybody's clamoring for. And if they do fall, it's usually there's a big wart that everybody knows about, and you're willing to take a risk on it. But I think whoever told you that is right, and I think it's been that way for a long time, that you can get really good backs on day 3.
Well, when it comes to, like you said, the warts, so let's call them red dot players. All right, you got 500 players listed. Some have red dots, for whatever the off the field or injury related reasons. What's the process in looking past that, or by faith, knowing we know A, B, and C, and we're going to take him because we believe in the culture here. We believe in, let's say, the running backs room, and we're going to have him by Aaron, and Aaron's top notch person. Like what's your standpoint on that?
Well, I think with Kwesi, there's some non-negotiables, which is great when you're going through 500 names in draft meetings and you're like, okay, double red dot, we're not talking about this guy.
Yeah.
But you also want to really get in the weeds if it's somebody that's been rehabilitated, because you want to give people second chances. There's so many stories. You don't want to crush a guy for something he did in high school, or early on in his career, or if all of a sudden, the last 4 years he's a great citizen. There's guys in free agency now that, had done something really bad in their past, but for the last 8 years they've been.
We saw that with
good.
Jared Allen.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. And it's the human side of it that I feel through the interview process, through all of our our doctors and our performance people, and all the tests we're able to give them, it's so much greater than when I was coming out, or you were coming out, Pete, just how deep it is. But you could really get into the weeds on what makes somebody tick, and I think you just come to an agreement, and then ownership sometimes will get involved if it's something that a guy that we really want, that maybe we get great value for. Sometimes it comes down to just asking the owner, are we comfortable with this as an organization, having to be at the podium when it gets addressed.
Last one.
A lot's been made about the devaluation of the running back position, and I think recently, even with the Super Bowl run by Philly, what we've seen out of Aaron Jones, the running back position is still very, very important. Do you see that trend continuing in the NFL? I mean, you look at the successful teams and the run games that they have. The run game isn't disappearing by any means, I guess, is my statement. So go ahead and tell me where I'm right and tell me where I'm wrong.
Well, I think you're right in the fact that guys like Saquon, who are dynamic, can really change a game. If it's your more yeoman-type back that is in a system where they pound it and that's an emphasis, versus a guy that has all these blue traits, we talk because he's a blue guy, like he's an elite guy, that if you hand it to him, it might not have to be blocked up perfectly. Now, Philly also has monsters up front. So that's a two-headed monster. So you have a blue running back with a blue offensive line. That's probably going to work out pretty well for you. But I do think that with guys like Saquon, now everybody wants the next Saquon. And, you know, whether they turn somebody into him in the draft that may not be him, that sometimes happens. But I do think that there's more of an emphasis now because there are some good backs emerging in our league that can change the game. There's some in this draft.
Appreciate the time. Thank you very much,
Got
man.
it, guys.